Mikala Dwyer has created a number of different artworks for the precinct. 2 were commissioned by Sydney Metro and 1 by Macquarie Group. The artworks were under development for around 18 months, with the fabrication process taking over 2 years.
It is an incredible sort of situation to have 3 works across these sort of vast spaces of a train station, and they're all sort of standalone in their own right. You don't need to see them all to make sense of the one. I think the relationships are where it opens up into something more interesting, and also acknowledge that people are moving from one space to another, that there's a journey, like the journeys that are happening underground.
Metro stations are long. The platforms are about 180 metres long. So many of our city stations have 2 entrances. In that situation, we asked the artists to come up with one concept but an expression at each of the entrances. Mikala's artwork has part of Continuum at the southern entrance and then the Mobius in the northern entrance. And one of the really wonderful things about Continuum is it combines both a wall work with sculptural works that are seen in the round. That is actually wonderfully engaging.
I'd describe Continuum as several components of the one work. So there's a big mirror finished stainless steel sculpture that's suspended from the roof, and it's modelled off a Mobius strip, which is mathematical form. It's quite confounding, you can't tell where it begins and ends. And then there's a sphere that's sort of dangling off it, a bit like an earring or something. So together as a mathematical form, it's quite wrong. Like it's like a mathematical form of endlessness, but it's got like a full stop on it. It kind of confounds it more. And then that leads into another work in another space that is a really brightly coloured tile mural about 7 metres by 7 metres, done in handmade tiles that is quite abstract, brightly coloured, and that has many flat geometric shapes that riff off train tracks, cycles. I put moons in it because moons are a kind of indication of the passage of day to night, I guess, more reference to the cycles of time. And then exploding out of that are these bronze, aluminium, steel and brass shapes that are kind of 3-dimensional manifestations of the flat shapes that are in the mural. My work's often site-specific, and I think a lot about the places where the sculptures go.
A big part of Mobius was we used pre-visualisation. So we modelled it and we put it inside a virtual space of this foyer, and we were able to stand in a room with all the stakeholders and look at the position of Mobius, but most importantly for Mikala to be able to stand in all the different parts of this building and go, that's the sweet spot.
When I saw these spaces, I just could see things in them. Like I could just imagine these forms. Unfortunately, I work with a really great engineer. I can dream up the weirdest things and he goes, yeah, we can do that. We can actually make that. And so we sort of stretch ourselves into new materials and new shapes and new things that shouldn't be able to happen, but they do.
So the premise was to make it by hand, so to bend and manipulate metal. There's a group of steel masters in a province called Chuyong in China, and so we had 12 specific steel masters. They hand beat 1,200 pieces of stainless steel about this big with curves in them, and then welded them, polished them and joined them back together to have Mobius. And then we shipped that here in several sections and we reassembled it down in Botany, and we brought it here as a 3-lane wide load, police assisted, and it was great fun. That's the process.
Shelter of Hollows is located in a really prominent spot in the precinct, right at the entrance to the office lobby.
It's quite a sort of intense location, so I've tried to make works that are quite simple and abstract and open, but their forms are really drawing upon these cycles. So Shelter of Hollows is made of a combination of copper, stainless steel and a beautiful chunk of handmade glass that will get sort of inserted into the mirror finished cube that hangs off the sculpture. It's a beautiful bit of bling.
Yes, so my involvement in Shelter of Hollows began about 3 or 4 years ago now. She said that she wanted some kind of mineral conglomerate crystal meteor shard-like, penetrating this mirrored cube. So that was my brief. We decided to illuminate the crystal to give it a sense of life force.
It's always a bit of an unknown how people react to artworks. I'm hoping it'll arouse some curiosity because it's got some really interesting interior spaces that if you're standing underneath, you can look up through it, and it's wormholes through the middle of it that aren't really evident from many other angles. So there'll just be one angle where you'll see that there's a whole other space that's interior. A daily commuter might just eventually get so used to they don't see it anymore. But in that moment where somebody gets so used to it they don't see it anymore, it becomes part of them somehow, I think. I'm kind of curious about how people forget what they're looking at, because I feel like sometimes it maybe has become embodied somehow.
Seeing it in the space has been a complete joy, like to finally see this, once little drawing on a piece of paper, then go through 6 years of modelling and sketching and conversations and millions of meetings, and then to see it actually in space and it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. And I think it really does work. I think having sculptures in space just shifts it from just being always architectural space, becomes something other. So very happy with that.